Hey everyone, Beth Barany here with How to Write the Future podcast. I'm here with you in this episode and in this series talking about Trust Your Creative Heart Roadmap. This is my roadmap for science fiction and fantasy authors to help them go from idea to published book that they are super proud of, that you're excited to hand to your readers. So we talked about step 1, about an assessment. Step 2, developing a writing practice. Now here in step 3, we are going to talk about story development. And if you want to go and get an overview of everything that I'm talking about, I have an overview episode. And if you want to go back into steps 1 and 2, be sure to go and check those out as well. Today, as I said, we're going to talk about story development. I love this phase. So I am assuming that you have an idea, even the tiniest idea. Great. It could be a scene. It could be a moment. It could be a dialogue line. It could be a big kind of action. It could be a thought. It could be an object or a sound. It could be anything, literally anything that gets you excited and you're like, there's a story here. I want to do something with this. Once you have that kernel, or that seed, now you can develop it into a story. Now, there are generally 2 camps of writers. One, complete, write by the seat of your pants. We call them pantsers. And I'm sure there's other names for them as well. Are you someone who could just sit down and write from that idea? Great. Go for it. Come back to story development in your revision phase. Or if you are on the far other end of this spectrum, you might be a plotter, someone who takes their time writing a very detailed plan of what their story is going to be about. My husband is like that. He writes very detailed plans. And I'm somewhere in the middle. I have an idea. I like to have a general roadmap of where I'm going. I love roadmaps, but it doesn't tell me every single detail. Otherwise, I would be bored and I would feel like the story has already been created. So I'm somewhere in between. And with that, I think of what story development is creating milestones so that I can sit down and write the first draft. And then in the revision phase, I also actually go back into story development and think even more deeply about my characters, about the story, about who everyone is and why they want what they want and why they want it. So that's the core of story development is what is your story about? What do your characters want? Why do they want it? That's their motivation. And what is in their way? That's their conflict. Now I have a whole entire curriculum for story development, and it's called Plan Your Novel Like a Pro. This is a book that you can buy digital or paperback, and it comes with a free digital workbook. I encourage you to, if you've never written a novel before and you don't know where to begin, I recommend Plan Your Novel Like a Pro. It's really designed for people to go through it step by step and do it in bite-sized pieces throughout their busy day, throughout their busy lives. And I have to tell you, I got a great testimonial recently from a teenage girl who said to me that she, number 1, understood the book, and number 2, it got her working and planning her story. So I know this book is really helpful. I've had hundreds of people take the class that's associated with this book and be able to go through the plan and write their first draft. It's awesome. And it's actually my method that I use. And I've thrown in some more plotter-oriented tools in there as well, if you're more like my husband and need way more plotting detail. So that's included in the book as well. It is for people who want some guidance in how do you go from story idea, and we walk you through all the way so you can end the planning process with either a very detailed plan, if that's the way you want to do it, or a milestones type roadmap, which is the way I do it. And I explain all of that in Plan Your Novel Like a Pro. I'm going to give you 2 tips today to help you get into character, get to know your characters and really understand how they perceive the world so that you can write the book in their voice, provided that you want to write your story in the voice of one character or many characters. And that is journal in your character's voice. Interview your character and have them reply in a very personal and private voice. And that will help you get to know them better, understand how they think and how they perceive the world. It's one of my favorite tools. All right. And if you would like more resources on developing your story world, I have a free resource for that, which is the World Building Workbook for Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers. It's designed for all fiction writers. I work with science fiction and fantasy writers. There's a lot of questions in that workbook for world building. Lastly, I would like to say in this step, this is where you get to have courage and trust your own voice and your own style. Writers often come to me and ask me, am I doing it right? It feels like I'm not doing it right. And I'm asking them, why do you feel that way? And they tell me, I just have bits and pieces and it's a bit of a mess and I'm doing something I haven't done before. Or I feel it's too derivative. It's too much like what other people are doing. And I'm like, it's coming out of you. You're inspired. I ask them, is this something that they really care about, that they really want to write? And they'll tell me, yes, yes. And they'll be very excited and adamant. And I'm like, trust yourself. Trust your instincts. Go with what you've got. Now is not the time to judge your work. Now is the time to put your work down on the page, to put your ideas on the page. And after you've written your first draft, don't worry, you have plenty of time to judge your work, to decide if it's good or not. And that's much, much later down the road. In this stage, in this step of story development, your job is to be creating your story plan, to be answering questions about who your characters are, what they want, why they want it, and what's in their way. All right, there's two final questions I want to leave with you that you may be familiar with if you've listened to the other episodes, which is, in the story development phase, what is working for you? What is already working? Maybe you're already in progress with your story development. Maybe you have resources. Maybe you have your hands on everything that you need to help you plan and plot your story. I use plan and plot interchangeably because I prefer planning, and a lot of writers use the word plot, but for me, it's planning. So what is working for you? And then the second question is, what would you like more of when you think about story development? Maybe you need to build skills around how to develop a story. What is a scene? What is story structure? How to develop a character? What is world building? What is a scene itself? What are the components of a scene? So maybe you need skill building. Maybe you need inspiration. And what you would like more of is inspiration. And in which case, go and do the things that inspire you, television or film or reading or travel or music or eating new foods. Do some things that inspire you. Or maybe what you would like more of is to have conversations with interesting people so you can get some new ideas on what to write about. Or maybe you want to talk out your story ideas, and that is your part of your process, and that's something that you need. Those are just some examples. So be sure and ask yourself what's working for you in the story development stage and what would you like more of. All right, in the next episode, we're going to talk about writing your messy first draft. That's all for this week. Write long and prosper.